Yeah. For those of you that want to know what we're all about, it's like this, yo. This is 10% luck, 20% skill, 15% concentrated power of will, 5% pleasure, 50% pain, 100% reason to remember the name. He doesn't need his name up in lights, he just
Welcome to the InstantCast presented by the PewterCast. I am Brent Allen, your host. Joining me, as always, Ren Dax, our co-host. Ren, pulled off a W tonight, my friend.
Yeah, we won. I didn't realize how much I needed this win mentally as a Buccaneers fan until we actually got it. It's been a rough 5 weeks, man. But, the Jets turned back into the Jets. Bucs defense showed up. And Fitzpatrick did enough to get us enough points to win the game. So 1 of 7 in a row.
Yeah, I got to tell you, there are some guys around me like, that's one. We got 7 more to go. I was struck just by talking to some of the people in the stadium. Like, there are fans who really believe and really think, and it starts with 1, but they think we could go 8-0 in this whole last segment and wind up the season 10-6. Now, I'm not quite ready to go there just yet, but I think all of Bucs Nation agrees with what you just said, Ren. We all needed this win. I haven't seen any locker room footage or anything like that, but it sounds like the locker room needed it. Coach Cutter needed it. We as fringe media needed it. I got to tell you, I know some of the other guys that I bumped into today at the game, Derek and a couple other people. We all needed it, and just fans as a whole really needed this win. And everybody in the chat room over at mixler.com/thepewtercast, they keep jumping in, and the first thing that they say every single time is, we got to win. It might have been ugly, but we got to win. It was a little sloppy, but a win is a win is a win. And you know what? I'm right there with them.
Yeah. There's how bad it's been, this past month. I would be hard-pressed to start complaining, at least until tomorrow.
Yeah, and this should make – here's the thing. When we win, especially after having the streak of losing, you and I would come up, especially on the second show, the Final Thoughts episode, and kind of be like, do we got to talk about this game? How in detail can we go about this? Like, now we actually have something fun to talk about, like we can go in there and we can deconstruct the game a little bit and analyze it a little bit more and not be doing the drudgery of it. So I'm looking forward to getting to the Final Thoughts show, but this is the InstantCast show, guys. For those of you who are listening who may not be familiar with the InstantCast show, this is a show where we get to just come on and talk about. We're going to open up the phone lines here in just a few minutes. Your fellow fans are going to get to call in, and we're going to talk about the game today. These are our fresh, raw reactions. We've not generally had a ton of time to watch all the press conferences. We've not watched the game film back yet. None of that. These are just initial reactions, initial thoughts coming off the game. Coming up later in the week, we will have our Final Thoughts episode, Ren, where we'll have the opportunity to dive a little bit deeper into the game, review the game film, and all that kind of stuff. And then we have a third show coming out on Saturday mornings called Buck in the News. That show's really taken off. It's been a lot of fun where we get a chance to take a look at the headlines that came out over the course of the week and look at the injury reports and all that kind of stuff. But for tonight, kicking off a brand new week for us, it's the InstantCast, Game 9, Jets versus the Bucs. And just for the record, I know Ren already said it, Buccaneers took on the New York Jets at Raymond James Stadium here in Tampa, and the Buccaneers came out with a win, 15-10. Not a terribly high-scoring game, but one that we came out ahead on at the end anyway. So you can't hate on that, Ren, before I open up the phone lines, do you have any kind of initial thoughts you want to kick us off with tonight's game?
Defense. The defense showed up. Yeah.
Hello. Yeah.
Hey, let's play some press man on third down and not just let the outside wide receivers run to the sticks and turn around. Get the quarterback off his first read. I didn't notice. Get to the quarterback. I was just going there. I didn't notice it during the game, but I saw a lot afterwards of people talking about how the Bucs didn't stunt nearly as much.
Mm-hmm.
What I thought was at least the most clever part of the defensive game plan was with Will Golston out, they took our big linebacker Kendall Beckwith and put him. They were basically running a 3-3-5, 3 down defensive linemen, 3 linebackers, but they basically more or less played Kendall Beckwith as a defensive end,
Mm-hmm.
and he rushed every play, got a sack. But with his size, as far as being our biggest linebacker, he could set the edge in the run game as well.
Mm-hmm.
And the run defense, defense overall was, even the Chicago game, I think, might have been our best overall effort.
You mean today? Today might have been our best overall effort?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry if that wasn't clear. Had the Jets behind the sticks a lot. That was a little bit self-inflicted,
Mm-hmm.
but really stuffing the running game and making McCown take the checkdowns where the back or the receiver or the tight end had to make somebody miss to get to the sticks to get the first down. And there was sound tackling, all day long. So lots of 3 and outs. This was a defense we were expecting to see, the whole entire first half of the season coming off what we saw the second half of last season.
Yeah, exactly. It's I don't know what it is about this kind of halfway point, but man, the defense was playing their hearts out tonight. And this game is defense. Right as you took it off, right as you started off saying, I kind of had this note in a couple different places of just going, this was not an incredibly fun game to watch when the offense was on the field. Like it wasn't overly entertaining, but when the defense was on, man, it was great to watch. Now at the end of the day, we still came out ahead. And hey, listen, I don't care if we win by 30 points or we win by 1 point, we still win at the end of the day, and that's the big thing that matters. Though I got to be honest, I kind of like winning by 30 points more than I do 1. But today we won by 5. Should have been. I feel like it should have been a little bit more there. But I think let's go ahead and open up the phone lines. Want to say welcome and hello to everyone who is joining us live at mixler.com/thepewtercast. You guys can join us if you're listening to this on the podcast app. You can join us live. We do this on Sunday nights. Tonight we're doing it about an hour later, 10 o'clock. We tried this a couple weeks ago, worked pretty well. Seems to be doing well. We got several people in the chat room. So if you want to call in, guys, I'm going to go ahead and open up the phone line. The number is 864-729-BUCKS. That's 864-729-2827. You guys call in. We'll talk about what you want to talk about. I will remind you, this is a PG-13 show. That rule is back in place. I don't know. I probably still won't edit it if anything weird slips out. But, we do like to have people, be able to listen to this with their kids in the car. But while we wait on that first call to come in, Ren, let's talk about the big thing in the room outside of the defense, and let's go to the quarterback position. I want to talk about Fitzpatrick. Jameis Winston was out today, a shoulder injury. They originally said it was going to be about 2 weeks, and now they're saying it could be an extended time, blah, blah, blah. Fitzpatrick comes in. A lot of people were like, oh, watch Fitzpatrick. He's going to come in and look really sharp and take command of everything and show up Jameis and all this kind of stuff. Fitzpatrick gets in, manages a game. What are your thoughts on how he played?
I thought he did look pretty sharp. A little bit of the self-inflicted wounds still there by the Buccaneers.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of costly penalties in the red zone.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that his scrambling ability, which is so weird to say for a quarterback his age, I guess, because when you think of Ryan Fitzpatrick, it's not what you think of. I think he saved a couple of sacks for the offensive line. Not getting huge gains, but at least getting across the line of scrimmage. I will say, if he keeps playing the way he played this week,
mm-hmm.
we're going to be seeing Ryan Griffin sooner than later. He stuck his nose in there quite a few times
mm-hmm.
instead of getting down and sliding. But I thought he threw the ball well. He took what the defense gave him. I thought, especially in that first scoring drive, where we kicked the field goal, I think it was like 17 plays, 77 yards. He converted third down after third down after third down. just move the team down the field for the most part. So I was pleased with his performance. He did have a couple of bad throws. That interception should have been a touchdown. Almost, something you would see from Jameis, where it's like, man, if you just put that ball, there's all that open field, man. Just gotta put it on that side of the open field. And Godwin, goes rolling in for his first touchdown. But he found Djax, got him involved. I liked pretty much everything he did. I was a bit shocked that it was almost no Humphreys, no Brait, and
no tight ends. No OJ Howard.
Yeah. And it was just a little bit shocking to me. I thought, he'd work the middle of the field a little bit more, but at the end of the day, I thought you really couldn't ask much more except for a few accuracy issues.
To speak to the middle of the field and the Deshaun Jackson, the big thing I noticed with that whole deal was while he did try to air it out a few times, he didn't feel like that was the only way to get Deshaun Jackson the ball. Like the majority of the time when he was throwing the ball, it was a short. I don't want to say they're all slant routes or anything like that, but they were generally short. They were generally around the middle of the field, maybe 10 yards out. And then Deshaun Jackson would turn on the afterburners and get all the yards that he would get after that, generally speaking. Now, I know it was different on a couple different plays, but it wasn't these 50-yard bombs that, really
that we feel like that was the only way they were trying to get him the ball.
Sure.
For the first, 5-6 games of the season.
Right.
And I think all Bucs fans sort of know this by now. Is like the secret to use Deshaun Jackson is to get him the ball while he's moving. Button hooks and curls and digs aren't, he'll catch it. But if you want to use Deshaun Jackson to Deshaun Jackson's maximum capability is, get him while he's moving. So if you're not going to go deep, it's drags and crosses so he can, sort of run through the zone and use that world-class speed he has.
Yeah, it absolutely. I think, I don't, how do I want to say this? I hope this is something that we continue to do when Jameis comes back.
Right. We saw a little bit of it before Jameis went down.
Yeah.
We did.
Yeah. But as far as Fitzpatrick himself, I don't know what it felt like watching this game at home. And if any of you guys are listening, you were there. I know Kevin was at the game. I got to meet Kevin in person, face to face for the very first time. Hung out with him for a few minutes today. Cool. So shout out to Kevin. It was really cool to get to see you guys. Got to meet Nick. I don't know if Nick's in the chat room or not, but got to hang out with Nick at the What the Buck tailgate and a couple other people. So really cool to get to meet some of our fans, people who some of our fellow fans, people who also listen to this podcast as well. Meet some of their family, but. If you guys want to call in and talk about it, especially if you're at the game, but like I said, I don't know if this translated through the TV. There was a different feel to the offense today when they were on the field. There was a calmness. There was a in control. There was a collected manner about them that even when they were going 3 and out, or even when a drive would stall, or even when an interception would get thrown, not McCown, Fitzpatrick threw how many interceptions today?
Just one.
Just the one. Had a couple of them that were real close though.
Yeah, I think he had one called back, like he threw it, but it was a defensive penalty.
Okay, cool. So, but even still, like when those things happened, it didn't feel like it let all the air out of the balloon.
It wasn't the end of the world.
Exactly. And
game wasn't over.
Exactly. Now, was this the sharpest looking quarterback I've ever seen? No, it wasn't. Was this the most flashy looking quarterback? Was this the strongest armed? Was this the future Hall of Famer quarterback that we were seeing? No. This was the guy who came out, kept the offense in control, didn't let things get out of hand. He managed the game, and he did okay. Gave us enough points. Could have probably had a few more points there. But when you consider that this is Fitzpatrick's first full game anyway, in I don't know how. I don't know. Was he playing full games last year? I don't remember.
Yeah, he played. I think he played. He got benched, I think, twice last year when he was with the Jets. But I think he ended up playing like week 16 was his last start with the Jets. So it was lots of injuries. Like he got pulled and they got injured and he had to go back in. They got pulled again and somebody got injured and had to go back in and start again.
Sure.
You know.
So, but at least for the season, this is the first time he's been in for a full game.
Oh, this year?
Yeah, for sure. So to sit there and go, hey, listen, it just felt calm, cool, collected. It never felt like it really got out of hand. The defense was going out there and controlling the game. They were keeping McCown and the Jets at bay. It was bend don't break, but they weren't really doing a whole lot of bending or breaking at all. Like they really did what they needed to do to shut them down. When the offense got off the field, the defense came on, and you didn't feel like they were going to give up a big touchdown. You didn't feel like they were going to go out and give up, anything huge. They were going to go out and get the ball back. And That's exactly what we saw through 4 quarters of football. It didn't take an entire half to get going. It didn't take getting down to a 2-minute warning and all of a sudden everything starts clicking. Like it ramped up. It felt like they were maybe doing some stuff in the first half that set up some things for the second half. So I was pretty pleased. Does this mean that I don't want Jameis back? Absolutely not. When Jameis comes back, I will welcome him back. I want him back when the time is right, when his shoulder is better, when his shoulder is fully better. But this is something that I would like to see Jameis learn.
Trevor said something. Trevor Sikkema from the Pewter Report. He said something on one of their podcasts last week, and it really rang true because we had said things like it feels like the offense is frantic. We've talked about how it feels like Jameis is trying to score 10 points every time the Bucs get the ball. It just feels when he's out there that if he doesn't get a touchdown, like he's just a little frantic, maybe a little frazzled. That might be a strong word, but definitely not the feeling you got today with, where it's like, okay, 3-and-out punt, no big deal. But you also talked about, I think it had a lot to do with the defense doing its job finally. I mean, started the game, 3-and-out. The Jets took 2 penalties, and they're punting out of their own end zone. That is a far cry from what we've seen. A team getting the opening, taking the opening kickoff and going down and scoring was the norm against us. So, or not even, even if we got the ball first, then their offense would come out and their first offensive possession would come out and score, and then you're already behind the stick. So. I think the defense had a lot to do with it. I do think that Fitzpatrick's, years and experience and, understanding in his head just exactly how long a, NFL football game is helped as well. But I will say the biggest factor to that was the defense and even keeping it into the game. I mean, it was, what was it, like 3-3 at halftime?
Yeah.
And the Jets scored, as the clock ran out at halftime, got their field goal. So, this game just never felt like it was out of the way. So there was not this feeling where, okay, we're probably gonna have like 6 possessions left and we need 4 scores. We got to do it now type of feeling that was never there.
Yeah. And I'll tell you something else that I saw. Now, I'm not saying Jameis doesn't do this. I'm not saying Jameis hasn't. I'm just saying I've never really noticed it. Okay. But something I did notice in today's game was there were lots of times when Fitzpatrick was out. They'd go into the huddle, they'd call play, people would start lining up or something would happen, and or maybe a timeout would get called, TV timeout, whatever it is. And Fitzpatrick would actually walk over to Cutter and talk like face to face with Cutter. And there was one time where what I kind of interpreted my eyes seeing was they lined up, they turned around, didn't like what they were seeing or something like that, and wound up calling a timeout. And Fitzpatrick went over, talked to Cutter, And it was almost as if Fitzpatrick was saying, "Hey, coach, that's not the right call to make here, or here's what I'm seeing. Let's run this other play." And Fitzpatrick was he wasn't just calling an audible when he got to the line. Like, he was actually like relaying back to coach what he was seeing when he was up on the line, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like a little bit of, I mean, honestly, it's what you see some of the more veteran quarterbacks doing that, honestly, I don't necessarily recall ever seeing Jameis do. Like, I think for Jameis, on some levels, and it just could be because he's still young in his career, that he trusts coach so implicitly that he'll run whatever coach says, unless he needs to call an audible on the line. Like he'll just run. He won't give him any pushback. He won't do whatever. That's what coach says. That's what we're going to run. Let's go for it. And this one looked like Fitzpatrick was going back and kind of working together with Cutter to figure out where the game plan needed to go at that moment. Right. Does that make sense?
Yeah. You're saying like they collaborated on what they were seeing and what might happen instead of Jameis just going, "Tell me what to do."
Exactly.
I'll execute it. But that's not surprising at all. We've sort of talked about how Jameis right now, I think, at least I have talked about, that right now he might be a little easy to fool defensively with looks and schemes. He's either not trusting what he's seeing or trusting what he's not seeing. I know I'm sort of covering both sides of the coin, but I really believe that. He's still learning in that, progression. Jameis is like 40 starts and Fitzpatrick just had like his 142nd or something. Jameis doesn't even have 50 starts in the NFL. So I'm not really worried about that. I get that. I think when they called the timeout, wasn't the next play the touchdown to Charles Sims?
I don't remember the order, but yes, I know the play you're talking about.
Because they were down there and they called timeout and they came back from the commercial break, because I was watching on TV, and then I think they threw it to Sims, and they talked about that. Fitzpatrick said that was a call from Dirk, and Dirk actually mentioned that on the first series, on the first third down, when Fitzpatrick had to run, they called a zero protection. And they brought somebody, and Dirk said he thought that they were going to do that again. And with the down and distance, it was like 3rd and 8, so that dump off to Charles Sims would not have gotten the first down. But on that touchdown, he said they both said it. Well, not both, but Fitzpatrick said it was a perfect call, and it just worked out. So as far as them collaborating back and forth, if that's the play we're talking about, if I'm getting the sequence right and time of the game right, that was all Dirk Cutter. But I do agree with you that I think that those two together are comfortable together, and Fitzpatrick definitely has the NFL cachet. He's got enough chips in the bank to be able to have a back and forth with the coach instead of just tell me what to do.
Yeah, and I read somewhere, maybe I heard somewhere, it was today. I know it was 100% today, but Fitzpatrick had said that one of the things he's liked most about this year is getting to help Jameis. And he also talked about how much Jameis was a help to him today. So I like the relationship. If this kind of maturity is something we're seeing out of Fitzpatrick, I think we all agree Jameis is our quarterback. We want Jameis in there. But I am glad for this kind of mentorship, but this kind of influence to be around Jameis for this year and however long we can get there. And I know our friend Bucs Princess Nikki, she still laments the Fitzpatrick curse, which seems to have claimed yet another person, but
hard to refute that.
But listen, if this is the weird step on the road to Jameis's maturity, and this helps actually further it and help it go faster in some weird way, then we may look back on this in a bunch of years and say, hey, listen, that year might have been really weird, but we're really glad. I think we might look back on this time and be very grateful for the time that we have right now. with this. So Fitzpatrick, other big player on offense this week. Did you have anything else on Fitzpatrick before I move on?
No.
All
Just to recap that I thought he looked about as good as he possibly could.
Bucs Princess, who is in the chat room, she says part of the curse of Fitzpatrick is that he winds up coming in and playing decently well. So teams.
Yeah, so he gets another job.
So he gets another job. By the way, I do want to say phone line is open for anybody who wants to call in. We would love to talk with you about your thoughts on the game today. 864-729-BUCS. That's 864-729-2827. All right, moving on. Probably the other big, somewhat of a breakout person, I guess, today. We talked about him briefly a few minutes ago, but let's bring him up. Deshaun Jackson. Had a pretty good game today. He was certainly the go-to guy for a lot of our plays today. Certainly had the most production. But not only that, the reports I was listening to the radio coming home, and they had Anthony Beck, and they were playing some of the press conferences and various things. Apparently, Djax, he's really stepping in to fill this leadership void that we've been talking about a lot, and it feels like it's showing.
Mm-hmm.
He apparently had this great locker room speech talking to the guys about, hey, listen, this is just one win. Don't let this get cocky. Kind of a little bit similar to that whole speak softly, carry a big stick thing that Dirk Cutter said a little bit of, hey, listen, just, this is one step on the next line. Let's see who we got here. You are on with Brent and Ren for the InstantCast. Who do we got talking to us tonight?
It's Chef Aaron, guys. How you guys doing tonight?
Chef, what's up, buddy?
Chef, what's up, buddy? How are you, man?
Oh, kind of like you guys. I'm relieved that we got the win, but obviously that comes at the price of our draft stock.
It does. I was just looking at that. Going into the game, we were number 4, and we are now number 10. And I got to say, if we keep winning, I'm okay for our draft position to keep falling.
Yeah, I'm going to we'll let you talk, Chef, but I don't like that talk at all. I mean, we were 19 last year, and we got a top 5 talent. And honestly, I think it's a lot easier on a GM when you have multiple needs to have a later first-round pick, because it just sort of narrows the field down. It's like it just really comes down to one guy. It's like it's got to be this guy. When you're picking the top 3 or 4 or 5, you might have a cornerback and an edge rusher and a running back and like a bunch of need positions, and then you have to sort of make that pick to make the right guy. I think the later you fall down, the whole fan base sort of gets behind the guy that you pick, because it really, once it gets to your pick, it's that guy or nobody. It just becomes real obvious.
So yeah, I get what you're going at. I just the only reason why I go like that is because obviously we hear a lot of stuff going on with Bradley Chubb. Obviously, a lot of people are doing the whole hashtags of Chubb for Chubb, which I'll admit that I did the other day. But it's like, from what I've read on Pewter Report and all that stuff with Scott Reynolds Fab 5, it's like he's got like the snap mentality and all that stuff, and obviously that's something that's been missing on that D line for about going on 14 years or something like that. But yeah, I understand, Ren, where you're coming from. Yeah, it would be a lot better. It would feel a lot better if we could keep winning and all that stuff, just to boost the morale of the fan base and boost the mentality of the team and all that stuff, which I gotta say, the team, the defense looks stout. So it's about time we get the pass rush going. The offense is still pretty questionable. I mean, Fitzpatrick and McCown kind of cancel themselves out a little bit, but I am kind of hoping that they bring in Griffin here sooner than later.
Well, if Fitzpatrick keeps, going head first, trying to get first downs and touchdowns, you're going to get your wish.
Yeah.
We'll have Jameis suiting up just to back up Griffin here before long if that keeps going. Chef, I think a lot of us are with you. We've said it for a couple of weeks. Glad to have Griffin back. We want to see what he can do. We'd love to see him out there for that. But I'm pleased with Fitzpatrick today. And provided he doesn't get hurt, Ren, if Fitzpatrick keeps playing, if the team keeps winning, we're just going to keep going with Fitzpatrick. I don't see us going to Griffin until there's a
for
need,
sure. Until this win streak is over,
right?
Then, or get to like 8 losses, and then you might start thinking about it. Because I mean, like you said at the opening, we win 7 more, and that makes us 10-6.
Yeah.
It's not off the table. Do I think it's going to happen? Absolutely not. We got to play the Saints, the Panthers, and the Falcons twice, plus Detroit, who's putting up a lot of points offensively. And I think all the other games, well, there's not that many left, but those are all hard games. I think the Dolphins game is winnable, obviously. So there's a couple of winnable games out there where are going to fall in the area of more like today's game where we should win. But, yeah, I'm with you. Until, we hit 8 losses or it becomes apparent that, we're just – no matter what we do, we're not going to have a chance at the playoffs. Let's roll with Fitzmagic and see where this crazy ride takes us.
I gotta say, the offensive line. I almost think that was probably their worst game of the season so far. I mean, I was especially looking at Donovan Smith today. I mean, I don't know how many times he just looked like he wasn't even trying. Like he was just. There was especially on that one play where like the offensive line broke down as a whole, but. Donovan Smith was right by Fitzpatrick, and he was like right by a guy he should have blocked. He didn't even try to block him. He was just like, it's like he was on an island trying to figure out like his escape route. He wasn't. It was just. I don't know if I would call him the biggest loaf on the team so far right now, but he's definitely shown that if he's going to stay on this team, he's going to be battling with like. Either a free agent acquisition or a left tackle that they bring in via the draft because he is showing that he is not right now worth a second contract.
I don't know if I agree with you or not. I think he's worth a second contract. I don't think it's going to be with us, though, because he'll get overpaid because he is a left tackle. He'll get overpaid by somebody, and we're not going to overpay him because we know what we have. I'd still like to have him on the team, to be honest. Do I think his play puts onto the table that, he should be replaced or that discussion is definitely there? Absolutely. But, with how big and strong and athletic he is, it's only his 3rd year, which, different players develop at different times. I would rather have him as a Buccaneer than see him go somewhere else and possibly blossom. So, but I don't. But once again, I think the Bucs are just going to get outbid for him, because his
that's possible.
Play, because his market value is going to be higher than his play warrants, and I just don't think the Bucs are going to be players in sort of the price range that he's going to demand. Unfortunately.
Well,
I guess in my eyes, I just maybe think that in order for him to draw more competitive fire, maybe have somebody challenge him for that, like how like they brought in like kicking challenges. Obviously, we all know how that worked, but just like just position challenges and all that stuff. Because it just seems like ever since Donovan was drafted, he was basically handed the job. He didn't really work for or didn't really challenge for the job. So I'm just like wondering if maybe having somebody challenge him for it will actually like boost a fire under his ass more to like progress, because just I don't know, from my opinion, it just seems like he's just regressed, and it seems like he doesn't care about his blocks, or he's just I don't know. That's my opinion, but yeah, I understand where you're coming from too, Ren. Somebody will probably overpay for him because, good God, if there's anything we know about the NFL these days, like left tackles, quarterbacks, running backs will all get overpaid.
Yeah. I'm just to finish up. I'm with you, Chef. Like I think he's been a disappointment too, but yeah, you could possibly. I like the idea of bringing in competition for him, but yeah, he has underplayed to where he was drafted. That's for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Chef, I tell you what, for sake of kind of what we've been doing the last couple of weeks, I want to go ahead and clear this line. But I've actually stay with the show because I want to respond to what you've just said there about the left tackle spot. All right, man?
Sounds good, guys. Have a good night.
Thanks, Chef. Have a great night.
Thanks, Chef. See you, buddy.
So, full disclosure, I played left tackle when I was in school. So I tend to have a little bit of a more soft spot, I think, for these guys. And I don't have numbers in front of me to be able to back this up. I would agree with everyone. I think that Donovan Smith is he has not been performing up to snuff, and he needs to be better. I remember George Warhop in this past offseason said that Donovan Smith could be the best left tackle or one of the best left tackles in the entire league. If he wanted to be. I think Derek actually might have talked about this on the What the Buck podcast, maybe this last week, maybe 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, Warhop said he could be like top 2 or 3.
Yeah. Now, Warhop is the only offensive line coach that he's ever known. And it seems like this offensive line every other year is really good or really bad, or even within the middle of a season, it goes up and down. So, I wonder.
Are you putting Warhop's head on the chopping block?
I wonder. I just wonder. I wonder.
It's not a terrible question.
I wonder.
Or a terrible hypothesis.
I wonder. So there's that. 2, I would love to see the numbers of Donovan Smith compared to other left tackles in the league, particularly when it comes to penalties. Because I think we are a little hypersensitive when it comes to our own players when it comes to this kind of stuff. But I'd love to see his numbers specifically having to do with penalties. I'd love to see numbers as far as the thing I think that Derek, and he seems to have a better beat on this even more so than I do, is the internal clock in his head of how long he needs to hold his block. I don't disagree with Chef. There are plenty of times, and I can't point to it today, but I can point to it in the last game. Of course, there's a difference watching it on TV for me versus watching it live. But I can point to times when Donovan Smith has let his blocks go, and then he just stands in the middle of the field watching the rest of the play develop. And he's just not doing anything else. There are also other games where Donovan Smith has been stellar. Places where he absolutely obliterates the guy across the line from him. So, I'd love to see where that goes. But here's the thing. A lot of people in the chat room are talking about, hey, he's just not a starter. He might be a solid backup, maybe move him around, all these other kinds of things. And one person says his false starts. I'd love to see where his false starts numbers are compared to other left tackles in the league. Is it out of line? That's my only question, because I don't know. But with Donovan Smith specifically, though, like I think Chef was saying that he'd love to see him maybe compete. My question would be with who or with whom? Kevin Pamphile, Caleb Benenoch. I think given those 3, Donovan Smith is probably our best left tackle. Didn't we try Mar Dotson at left tackle a couple of years ago, or we had to go to it a couple of years ago, and we're like, he's not really a left tackle, he's more of a right tackle.
I don't remember.
I think we were kind of forced to put him over there, but it wasn't his spot. And so when we got Donovan Smith, that allowed Dotson to go back to the right-hand side. If I remember correctly, I think that's the way some of that worked. So, it on the team right now, it would seem like Donovan Smith is our best left tackle. And there's the old adage of, where are you going to get another left tackle from? Now, that's not to say that they're not out there. They could be there. It's just a matter of where are they going to be. And we already talked about how much money specifically left tackles command. Left tackles are among the top 2 or 3 paid positions in the entire team. There's quarterback, which is always going to be your top paid spot. But then after that, that left tackle spot is one of the absolute most expensive positions on the team. So to just bring in a free agent to compete with Donovan Smith, I don't think any team, especially the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I know we've got some salary cap room right now, but we're not going to have a whole lot of salary cap room here in the couple of years. I don't think we're going to have the luxury of bringing in a competitive let a competition happen at the left tackle position is what I'm saying.
Yeah, he's either going to have to be developed or going to have to draft one. Yeah. And if the Buccaneers, no matter where they draft next year in the first round, take a left tackle, people are going to flip out.
Exactly.
Because we do need edge rush. And, there's probably a few of defensive linemen that are on this team now that won't be next year.
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking about guys that play a lot. Ayers comes to mind right away. Actually, that might not be fair because he does have one more year.
He has one more year. Yeah,
he does have one more year. So, and since Robert Ayers came out and said in a locker room interview that, I need to play better, he has.
Mm-hmm.
He was the only guy who got a sack at Buffalo. He was the only guy that got a sack in the Saints game. Did he get it? He did get a sack today. He got a sack today. I think it was one of the first.
He did.
So, and his tackling has improved as far as at least amount of tackles that he gets in the stat book. So, yeah, it's just sort of the wrong year. I'm afraid you're just going to have to end up, we're going to be rolling with Donovan Smith next year. Mm-hmm. It'll be a contract year for him. He'll be a free agent after that. They'll have to you're probably going to wait to see how he plays, decide to sign him. But to bring in somebody that's going to replace him day one, you're going to have to be, it's going to have to be a first round pick. Mm-hmm. And I know as Buck fans that they don't want that. They're going to want an edge, a corner, and that's probably it. And then left tackle, because everybody else, we're pretty good. But corner and edge have got to be somewhere in those first 3 rounds, depending how it breaks.
I was having this conversation. It might have been with Kevin, I think, earlier today before the game. When it comes to the draft, and I know a lot of people, especially after last week, have kind of turned their attention on the draft. There are so many places we'd love to draft up front, but particularly with that first round draft pick, mm-hmm. it's going to be this mesh of best player available versus need of the team. It's going to be some weird amalgam. Which is corner. Defensive end. Hello, Will Clark and Darryl Tapp, both getting sacks today. Welcome to the edge rush. I think, didn't Robert Ayers, he moved inside and played the nose position on a couple of plays tonight, I believe, as well.
I did not see that.
And kicked, and I think like Gerald McCoy kicked out to the edge, it was weird or something. I'll have to go back and look at it and see exactly how all that shook out. But they were moving these guys around. But what was great was they were moving them around before the ball was snapped. They weren't doing these weird stunts where people were like trying to do like X cross patterns and bumping into each other and then bumping into somebody who was trying to blitz the quarterback. Like we could see a couple of weeks ago, like they just might have had them lining up in different positions. So, listen, I think one of the biggest things that Bucs fans have been clamoring for, certainly one of the things I've been clamoring for is you can't keep doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting different results. That's the definition of crazy, right? Like try something different than what you've been doing. And it felt like today we kind of went back to basics. We tried some things different that we haven't been trying all year long, and it worked, particularly on defense.
Yeah, it did.
Chris in the chat room says DeMar Dotson has hold on, let me back up. He says Donovan Smith has 2 total false starts on the season. Just 2. Same as Sweezy. DeMar Dotson actually has 4 and leads the team. And that's going to be another thing. The tackle position, left or right, but specifically the left, is going to be a magnet for penalty calls. They're the closest to the ref. They're the ones they're the furthest away from the quarterback. Like it just brings in the storm. Now I'm not saying it makes them okay. I'm not justifying those kinds of pre-snap penalties. You got to stop that. But it just set that up. So yeah, was today the offensive line? Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and to be fair, the last 2 holding penalties have been called against. I want to call him Dotson. It's not Dotson. Who the hell am I talking
Sweezy?
about? No.
Allie.
No.
Hanfield. Donovan.
Donovan. Thank you. Donovan Smith. Holy, I'm just like looking at his face in my head. I'm like, who are you? Have been crap. I mean, and I think 3 of how many holding penalties he has have been absolute, just like I can 3 off the top of my head, where he was rolling out on a screen to Charles Sims and just smothered the cornerback. The one where it was a deep pass to Djax, I believe it was last week, and the guy was just falling down. He fell on him. And then this week where he just takes a defensive end and tosses him. I mean, there was no hook. There was no, obviously you have to grab him a little bit to throw him, but it was just more of just taking his weight, almost like a jiu-jitsu move, just taking his inertia and just bloop and throwing him. And and that was a Doug Martin run that went for like 14 yards. It's just,
right.
It's just been brilliant. I mean, honestly, it's like he's snake bitten. It's like, what big play? Oh, we're calling a hold on you. It's like what?
So you just brought that up. You brought up Doug Martin. You brought up the running game. I want to get to this. 31 running attempts in today's game. Now, the offensive line, for as much as I can sit here and try to defend guys, like I said, I tend to have a soft spot. That was my spot. That was where I played. The offensive line was not stellar. They weren't great today. By any stretch of the imagination. And I think that's, Chef in his call. By the way, phone line is open if anybody wants to call in 864-729-BUCS. That's 864-729-2827. If you called in, somebody tried calling while Chef was in. I had to decline the call because we were in with one, so call back. The offensive line wasn't great. However, this running game today, 31 rushes, yay, probably one of the most infuriating things to me because we still had over four yards per rush. That's what we averaged. So yay for that. But my God, it was feast or famine on these runs. We were either breaking off 7, 8, 9, 10, plus yards, or we were getting stopped at the line of the scrimmage. Right. It's like we couldn't get the chip runs, right? The 2 yards, the 3 yards, the 4 yards. It had to be the close to 10 yards or nothing.
Right. It was either second and 8. It was either 2nd and 2 or 2nd and 11.
Mm-hmm.
There was no 2nd and 7, 2nd and 6.
Right. But we still had 31 rushing attempts on the day. We kept you keep pounding the rock, right? You keep running the ball, which opens up everything else, right? I mean, this is something we've heard other people talking about throughout the season. It's something you and I have at least touched on throughout the season. When you run the ball, it opens up everything else. And by the way, I think this also goes back to the defense. By the defense keeping us in the game, not letting the other team get ahead where we're having to play catch up, we could run the ball a whole lot more. Mm-hmm. So for everyone who wants to thrash back and forth about play calling and whatnot, this, is this the definition of complementary football? Defense kept us in it, so we could run it. We ran it, and even when the run wasn't necessarily effective on every single run, we continued to hit it, which allowed us to open up some of those passing yards, which hit us into Deshaun Jackson, a little bit to Chris Godwin, some of those other pieces.
Right. At the minimum, you have to have a threat of the run. Mm-hmm. And that's what sort of opens up this windows. I think the announcer said on TV, the color analyst said, who I believe was Rich Gannon, the Bucs ran the ball on first down 8 times in a row.
Rich Gannon? The quarterback who faced the Bucs in the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
He's an analyst?
Yeah.
I don't think I knew that. Okay, moving on. Sorry. Not what this show's about. Go ahead.
Shocker.
What did you – I'm sorry. I missed that. What did you say?
News.
What did he say? What did he say?
Yeah, I said Rich Gannon. You went off the rails.
Whoa.
Jesus. That the Bucs had run the ball on first down 8 times in a row. And the first time they did a play action on first down was right after the interception by Brent Grimes. Mm-hmm. And they faked it to Doug Martin. And that opened up the back half of the defense. And, Godwin was open. He wasn't wide open, O.J. Howard, Buccaneer wide open, but he was open. And all he needed was a decent pass to get a touchdown there. So,
and that's the one that they got an interception back, right? That's the back-to-back interception plays.
Yes.
Oh,
so even though
that was so heartbreaking in the stadium.
Yeah. But even though the Bucs weren't running the ball effectively, I mean, once again, these people that are beating the drum for Peyton Barber, 2 carries, -2 yards. He had, he didn't get a positive yard. He lost yardage both times he touched the ball. But anyway, Doug Martin wasn't having, this bang up game, but continuing to run the ball on first down and, psychologically getting into that habit and running the same formation. It's going to be a run, going to be a run, going to be a run, boom, bam. That's good play calling. It's poor execution by the quarterback once again.
So, yeah, you need the threat of the run. It doesn't necessarily have to be clipping off 6 yards, 7 yards, 10 yards per carry, but you have to consistently run the ball. And like you said, when the defense does their job and, keeps the team within I always like to – people say 2 scores, but I like to say like 10 points, 13 points. Keep them within 2 touchdowns. When you get down 14, I think you got to start throwing the ball a lot more. But 13 is a different story to me. So the defense keeps you in it, and you just keep pounding the rock and eating the clock, and you look up at the end of the game and you won.
I'll tell you something too about the running game specifically to tie it back to the offensive line. A lot of people want to blame the lack of running production on the offensive line. And Cutter got into his press conference. I heard it on the radio today where he said, it's not just the offensive line. There's also the tight end. There's also the wide receivers who are supposed to be blocking out some people doing some things. There's also the quarterback. There's a lot of other people. There are some people that I have already heard who are like, oh, that's Cutter kind of shifting the blame away from the offensive line onto all these other people. And I just want to say this for the record. When I have gone back and watched game film, that is the same thing that I have said. The offensive line certainly has their share of missed blocks, not opening up holes, different things like that. But it's not solely on them. There are plenty of times where I have seen a tight end miss their block, and that's the guy that comes and stops Doug for -1 yard. Or a wide receiver doesn't go out and pick up the person that they're supposed to pick up, or the quarterback doesn't doesn't hand it off right, or doesn't hide it right, or doesn't do something like, okay, less the quarterback. But it's not just those 5 guys. It really is some of the rest of the team. It is sometimes those 5 guys. I'm not saying that it's never them, but whenever the run gets stuffed, it almost always seems to fall back on the offensive line, and that's just not fair. And there are some people who are going to take what Cutter said. They've already done it. Take what Cutter said and kind of blow it off and blow it up. And I just want to say, for those who are listening at least to this podcast, that what Cutter said, that rings 100% true with the film that I have watched. That it's not just the offensive line, though they certainly have their deal with that. However,
would you say it's mostly the offensive line?
No, I don't. I mean, by really? Mostly, if you mean 51%, yeah, probably. But is it like 90% offensive line? No, I don't think it's that far. Let's find out who's calling here. Huh. You are on with Brent and Ren for the InstantCast. Who do we got here tonight?
It's Craig in Vegas. Hey, guys.
Craig, what's going on, buddy?
What's up, Craig?
Hey, what's up? Hey, so that game today, I'm lucky I went to Dunkin' Donuts before the game and got a little coffee, because it was not the most exciting game. Listen, I'm happy we won, because losing to the Jets would have been, I think, even more embarrassing. And listen, I liked what the guys are saying, trying to rally up and save the season as well, too. But today's what you saw is why 2 guys are backup quarterbacks or journeyman quarterbacks. They were average to below average at best, and that's why they're not, consistent starters in this league as well, too. Mm-hmm. The defense showed up finally. I mean, they were aided by some penalties as well, too, but that's a part of the game. We didn't get some of those calls the last few weeks. But I do want to make some comment about the O-line.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
I don't know if it's not a great O-line, and I don't think it's bad. I think it's average. Mm-hmm. But I don't think you know how good this O-line is until you have a breakaway back. I mean, Doug's a good serviceable running back. He's not what he was a few years ago, and almost every 2 or 3 years he has a good year. But other than that, he's been average at best. You don't know until you have that one cut runner that once he gets through one area, he can be gone. So it's hard to tell how good or bad this line is as well, too. There were some bad holds for that line as well, too. I think the one with J.R. Sleazy on that one, he just put his hand out there and hooked the guy under the neck. I mean, that was just a bad play as well, too. But I want to bring up something else as well, too. The Monday night game coming up, you're going to be honoring Gruden. Mm-hmm. How is that atmosphere going to be there if this team gets back on a losing streak and Gruden's in the building? And I think even Kamish brought it up on his podcast, too. Go back to that scene in Hard Knocks when Gruden was in the room with them.
Get out of the building.
And it was almost very uncomfortable for Dirk.
Sure.
You could see it in him a little bit. They almost were like, got to get him out of here. You know, he's going to keep going and going. And he kind of hinted like, hey, if you need my help, I'm just down the street.
Right.
And it kind of, you know, and he brought it up, and I kind of watched it again, went back to Hard Knocks, and this team is set up for a Gruden-type coach because you have all the pieces there to win. And, you know, it's going to be an interesting thing. And listen, I hope they salvage the season. I hope that there's, you know, we don't want another coach change as well, too. But he brought that up. I listened to it again. I watched that scene again. It's just it's an interesting thing to think about with him lingering out there as well, too, especially with that ceremony coming up.
Yeah, I mean, it got a little bit of pub at the beginning of the year. I noticed that as well. I actually, when we were doing our Talking Knox show, was angry at Gruden for not getting the hell out of the building. It felt like he was openly auditioning for the job, like right in front of Dirk Cutter. You know, Gruden made sure that he showed up at $1 to accept the invitation to be in the Ring of Honor when Hard Knocks was there. You know, and then I think next week on the football broadcast, he talked about how, you know, I wish I had a young quarterback like that to get my hands on when I'm coaching. He actually said that like during a broadcast, and he was talking about Jameis Winston. So it's going to get more and more play, but I think hopefully we all hope that as these Bucs go on like sort of a mini win streak, I think if they beat Miami, that talk will sort of go away for a long time. If we lose to Miami, I think it's full steam ahead Gruden talk till the end of the year.
Yeah, and there's one other play too, I think, and Brent, you were there, and you saw it. The safety play on this team is so bad that how Chris Conte bit in the last 29 seconds of a game of a ball that was going to come short around the 20-yard line, and Grimes had no help over the top on that touchdown. There's no way there should never be someone deeper than the safety at that late of a game. And we're lucky it wasn't a one-score game at that point. And, you know, it just doesn't make sense what this team does. And that play drove me. I know it didn't cost us the game. We ended up getting the onside kick as well, too. But that play just can't happen to a professional defense. You know, you're up 2 scores, 29 seconds. That guy just can't get behind the safety. You know, and the safety can't bite on an underneath play as well, too. That just can't happen. You've got to play, you know, 2 deep right there, and no one gets deeper than past you, and that's it, nothing else. And I think the other thing that's driving me nuts as well, too, is still, and you saw it, Ryan Smith still plays 15 to 20 yards off. There was a couple 3rd and 12 or 3rd and 30, the ones they did convert. He's backed off 25 yards off the line.
Right.
But you saw in the second half, they did go to more of a press man, and it seemed to stop a lot of that as well, too. This team, listen, they should just play press man up the whole time and just take your chances. But that play right there at the end of the game drove me out. So I just want to get your last thoughts on that as well. Yeah. Because that's a play that shouldn't happen.
Yeah, Craig, I can't speak much to the safety position because, you know, honestly, I don't know enough about how defenses run to be able to comment on that. But I do want to talk about the cornerback thing that you were just mentioning there with Smith and him playing so far off. You remember when Vernon was there? He got a lot of flack those first bunch of games for playing 10, 15 yards off the person, right? While Grimes was a lot more scooted up on the other side of the line. Vernon goes out, they punch him in at nickel. You know, obviously nickel plays basically right up on the line. And then Grimes goes down, and Vernon goes out to the
left corner.
The left corner, thank you. I can never remember which way I'm looking at with that. Stage left. He goes out to Grimes' side, and what's Vernon doing? He's playing right up real close. He's not backing off 10, and you look at Ryan Smith, and Ryan Smith is almost always playing off that same amount of distance that Vernon was playing off. And, you know, to go back to that whole conversation, Ren, that we kept having, is it player or is it scheme? And I know that, you know, Smith said we give them, some flexibility of where they're gonna play. I wonder if within this scheme, the left cornerback comes up and plays a little tighter, and the right cornerback plays a little looser. Like, I wonder if that's a part of it, because Ryan Smith is doing the exact same thing that Vernon was doing when he was in that spot, and when Vernon got out of that spot and went over to the other side, he was doing what Grimes is doing now. So I just wonder. I'm back to player versus scheme with that whole cornerback situation again.
Well, then
and I do agree with you, Brent. I really agree with what you're saying. It might be more scheme. I think 100% it might be scheme, because two guys are doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you have to go back to when Mike Smith was asked the question. He was finally asked, is it scheme or is it Vernon? He said it's Vernon. So you would have to think that Ryan Smith, it'd be the same answer. I think it's a factor of the two cornerbacks that have played that right corner position are both young cornerbacks and don't know everything about the position. And the more cushion you give, it gives you the more room for error in your play. I thought Ryan Smith had a really good first quarter. Like Craig alluded to, the second half, especially when the Jets went down, or the second quarter, when the Jets went down and scored their field goal at halftime, he had a bad series. That series was bad for him, and he also in the beginning of the third didn't look exactly stellar either. But then I thought, he tightened it up. Going back to talking about how that last touchdown or first touchdown that got scored at the end of the game, I hear you. It's sort of like football 101, but the Bucs weren't necessarily in prevent defense. It's like baseball. It's like you're up by a run, you play the lines of left field, right field, give up no doubles. It's like prevent defense, nothing over the top. But until somebody asked that question to Mike Smith, I'm not going to pin it on Chris Conte. So it is an odd. If it wasn't prevent defense, it is an odd call at that point. But it had worked. It kept him out of the end zone the whole entire game for there's 59 minutes and 30 seconds. So
58 and a half minutes, yeah.
Yeah, so it'll go back and forth with me until I find out the answer. But as far as the Ryan Smith thing, I just think it has to do with the inexperience and, trying to hide your deficiencies as much as possible while you learn the position.
Well, he's going to play a lot more next week if VH3 can't go, because he pulled his hamstring allegedly during the game.
Yeah.
He didn't play. He didn't play most of it. The only thing I think it was Conte. If you watch a replay of it, and you could see Conte bite and run up on the drag route underneath around the 15 to 20, and you can see the ball sail over his head.
Yeah.
Right. But how do you know the guy that was doing the drag route wasn't his man?
So.
Yeah. Hey,
I don't know. I just think at that point you just don't let anybody get behind you. At that
Agreed.
Point, because they were out of timeouts. If they tackled them at the 15 or the 5 or whatever, they still had to run down and get off another play.
I agree.
So.
If it wasn't Conte's fault, it was a peculiar defensive call for sure.
Yep. Definitely. Hey, Craig, I'm going to go ahead and clear this line.
I'm hoping to catch you. If you guys are going to do the show next week, I'm driving to Anaheim, taking the kids to Disneyland, so I'll be mainly listening to the game, but I'll be listening to the post game you guys next week.
Beautiful.
Great.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Craig. We'll talk to you, if not next week, probably the week after. All right, man?
Call us on Space Mountain.
There you go. Call us on Space Mountain. Hey, fun fact, if you ever get the chance to ride Space Mountain with the lights on, 100 times more scary than with the lights off.
It is.
It is.
It is.
Yes.
It is, because you think it's going to fall apart.
Yeah. Chris in the chat room says, in quarters coverage, and this might be a lot of what Smith's deal is, in quarters coverage, the cornerback is traditionally about 8 yards off the ball. So thank you for that, Chris. Where were we going with all that? We were talking about cornerback safety. Conte. Here's what I'll say about Conte. And I put this out there. I said Conte and Hargreaves, yeah, those guys are trash. Hashtag sarcasm. Hashtag in case you didn't you didn't know. Because Hargreaves and Conte, now whatever that one play, people biting on play, whatever, I'll go back and look at the film and see what happened there. But I will tell you, Conte personally saved a touchdown this game. He got into the mix.
I think Chris Conte's played the best safety of all the safeties we've had this year.
He might
at least the most consistent. Now, Justin Evans has made a few more splash plays with athleticism, but I cannot remember someone catching a touchdown pass on Chris Conte. I remember it on JT Ward twice. I remember it on Justin Evans, the game winner against Carolina comes to the top of my head. But as far as Chris Conte getting burned for a touchdown, I can't remember one.
Yeah, Conte saved a touchdown. Vernon Hargraves both saved a touchdown. So both of those guys did that. Now let's talk about TJ Ward for just a minute. We'll go ahead and wrap up because we're at our time here. But TJ Ward, he may not show up a whole lot on the stat sheet for this game, but I got to tell you, he was a big part of this game. He played a lot more reps, or at least it seemed like he played a lot more reps. I'll be interested to see what the snap count is when that comes out. But he was in this game quite a bit, and he was all over the field. He was covering, doing what he needed to do. If he wasn't making the tackle, I don't think he had a whole lot of tackles, but he was right. Like, he was the second guy there. He was the guy who was kind of covering it up, or he was the guy who was on someone else or something like that. So, it does seem like TJ Ward is coming in a little bit more to his own. Being there live, I happen to notice him quite a bit. Ren, as we kind of round out the show, do you have any other thoughts, anything you want to put out there before we kind of break off with the InstantCast show for tonight?
I'm becoming more and more a big Chris Godwin fan. I thought he had a very good game, and I think he's just a solid player, and he does everything right and does nothing wrong. I think he's a quick learner. He's a mature kid, and I believe he's going to be a very solid he's like one of those guys that's, who's a top 5 receiver in the NFL? It's never going to be Chris Godwin, but I think like every 4 years he'll be in the Pro Bowl type of deal. So I thought he had, with the suspension of Mike Evans, he got in there, and I thought he did a great job, and he got open, and he caught the ball, and he, got the onside kick, and there was no fumbling. He just super solid. Just kick it to me. He catches it. He falls down. He always makes the smart play. That's what it seems like. He's always in the right position, always making the right play and making the right decision. So I like him a lot.
Yeah, Chris Godwin. Certainly, this was a day for him to shine. Mike Evans will be back off suspension next week. Mike Evans will be the starting wide receiver one in that spot for us. But man, Cutter said, I think it was in Hard Knocks when he was addressing the team. He said, not everybody's going to get the same opportunity, but everybody will get opportunity. And when that opportunity comes, you've got to take advantage of it. And so do you think that Chris Godwin took advantage of the opportunity he was given today? Do you think he took advantage of the opportunity he was given today?
Yeah. Do I think it's going to interpret him getting more playing time this year? No. I mean, you're not going to pull off, Mike Evans or Deshaun Jackson. Now, if he becomes strictly the slot receiver, then yeah, I can see, something if we're projecting into next year that, we got Jackson, Evans, and Godwin as our starting 3, and then Hump, moves down to wide receiver 4. And it's nothing against Hump. It's just sort of it's what Godwin gives you with his size, I think outweighs what Hump just gives you. Hump gets to the spot he's supposed to be, and he catches the ball. Lately, the past few games, he hasn't really been doing that. He's been getting to the spot, but he hasn't been catching the ball. He put the ball on the ground in the Buffalo game. Okay, quote unquote, maybe cost us the game, but that's forgivable. The first fumble he ever had. But his hands, as far as Humphrey hands, as being like lock solid lead pipe gold, not lately. So if Godwin's going to get any playing time, it's going to be in slot. But unfortunately for him, even though he's learning all 3 positions, I think he's practicing most and learning, taking more reps at the outside. So I don't think, if everyone stays healthy, I don't think Godwin's really going to get more playing time until next year.
So conversation, not for right now, but for the future, is where does Godwin fit in this team in the future? Is he going to take over that? I don't think he's going to take over the Mike Evans spot. We want to keep him around for his career. Deshaun Jackson, we've only got him for a couple of years, but does Chris Godwin have the speed there? Otherwise, you're now talking, where is he going to fit? I want to put a pin in that because I think that's probably an interesting conversation to have.
Sure.
I think the receivers as a whole, at least in the first quarter, I had a note just saying they weren't looking super sharp. None of them were. Godwin, Deshaun, and Adam Humphries. And not just the receivers, but the whole quarterback to receiver connection didn't look super sharp. I think it came on certainly as the game went through the course of as things developed through the course of the game. But I think Chris Godwin did about as well as you could with the opportunity he was given. The ball's only going to come to him so many times, especially if you're running it 31 times and you're splitting it out with Deshaun Jackson.
He got 10 targets.
He's did they have the same? They had the same amount of targets, right? I think it's 10 and 10. But one thing I saw Chris Godwin doing a lot is he fell forward a lot. When he caught the ball, he was moving forward with the ball and gaining a couple extra yards. And, that's something that it's taken Mike Evans a couple of years to really learn how to do, where he would, Mike would usually catch the ball and just kind of almost crumple. He's working on that yards after catch, right? That yak. Chris Godwin, that was one of the things that I noticed about him today was it seemed like he really, I don't want to say he's mastered it, but it is certainly something he is.
He just does everything well.
Yeah, he does. And I saw somebody earlier today say he's got the prettiest face. They were watching a interview with him in the locker room.
Oh,
saying, he's got the prettiest face. Yeah, Marta said he's got the prettiest face on the team. So, all right, Ren. Well, I think that is going to do it for the InstantCast for today. Unless you just have something burning. You got anything?
No, I think we talked about Chris Godwin. I want to get that in. We've talked about everything. But just to, put a cap on this thing, Lavonte David's playing.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. How do we not talk about him?
Man.
Yeah, he is.
Man, he is playing really, really good football.
Yeah. So, and to talk about people stepping up to leadership spots, I tweeted out a picture of it and unfortunately it was a little bit late. To watch Lavonte doing the pregame speech, it was. I wish that they would show that somewhere. I wish that people could go back and see it because I knew at that moment when I saw that speech, I said, this team's going to come out fired up. This defense anyway is going to come out ready to roll. And I don't know that I can explain all the ways it was different. He was not eating anything on his hands. I can tell you that. But people were tuned in. People were responding to what Lavonte was saying. And this is Lavonte David, one of the more tends to be quiet guys on the team.
Right.
But man, he was lit up during that speech. And, listen, if the vocal leaders on the team are shifting to Deshaun Jackson and Lavonte David, at least on the veteran side of it, it's not a bad two guys. One on the offense, one on the defense. It's not a bad two guys to let those guys come in and bring that veteran.
It's hard to argue that they're not the two MVPs of their side of the ball.
I think that's absolutely true. That's 100% true. Yes, good insight there.
You could be a little disappointed in Jackson's numbers, but none of it has to do with he's not dropping the ball. And none of it has to do with him.
Yeah. So, all right, guys. Well, that is going to wrap us up for the InstantCast for tonight. I want to thank everybody who joined us in the Mixler chat room, mixler.com/thepewtercast. You guys can make sure you join us there after just about every single game on Sunday nights. Stay tuned to our Twitter account at the Pewtercast for final details of time and all that kind of stuff. It's been shifting between 9 and 10 o'clock, so we'll let you know how that works out. You also can connect with us at facebook.com/thepewtercast. And hey, listen, coming up here in just a couple days, we're going to have our final thoughts episode. That's where we'll get a little bit of a deeper dive into the game. We'll, we'll have a chance to watch all the press conferences and see and actually try to parse this game out a little bit more. We're going to grade out the game. We'd love to hear from you. Send in your emails letting us know your thoughts on the game. thepewtercast@gmail.com. We'll make sure we get to those, read those on the Final Thoughts episode. Also, iTunes reviews. Please go over to iTunes, leave us a review, rate and review, 5 stars preferably. But whatever you leave us, we will make sure that we read. So with that, Ren, why don't you let people know where they can get a hold of you out there on the internet?
Easiest way and best way is to find me on Twitter. It's pretty much the only social network that I open. At Rendax, REN_DAXT. I'm always down to talk Buccaneers football.
And if you want to connect with me personally, I'm at Brent and Ren Live through all the social medias, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, not on Snapchat. I tried downloading the Snapchat app, and I'm just too old to figure out how to use it. So, I'm going to stick to the other 3. But like I said, you can also get with us one more time to the show at the Pewtercast on Twitter. We do get to respond to all forms of feedback. It's one of the more fun aspects of being part of this Bucs fan community. Until next time, my friends. Hey, listen, we've got a good week ahead of us. This is going to be a good week. Let's breathe easy, rest a little easier as Bucs fans. Should be a lot of fun. Make sure you check out all the other podcasts going on out this week as well. Lots of good stuff in the Buccaneers ecosystem. So until next time, as we always say, go Bucs.